dears, and welcome to another chapter of reading. The reason why this chapter is being recorded today and why it wasn't recorded last week is because last week I decided to take a pause, reflect, and reset day. And I figured after recording a lot of these for you, I just needed to pause, reflect, just overall have a break. And it was really beneficial because I'm gonna be frank, I'm trying to write a story I would actually like physically published in the real world. So yeah, I've been world building on that. So that's why last week's chapter is being read this week, aka today. I hope you forgive me for that. But if you're interested in my world building and stuff, please let me know. I will gladly make a post about it and tell you in the comments. I'm excited for it because, like I said, I would actually like it physically released in the real world. So it's just an exciting labor of love. But yeah, the reset day was last week and it was truly beneficial. I'm hoping you understand that. But onto the chapter, shall we? Chapter 7. The Will of Albus Dumbledore. He was walking along a mountain road in the cool blue light of dawn. Far below, swathed in mist, was the shadow of a small town. Was the man he saw down there the man he needed so badly he could think of little else? The man who held the answer to his problem? Oi, wake up! Harry opened his eyes. He was lying again on the camp bed in Ron's dingy attic room. The sun had not yet risen, and the room was still shadowy. Pigwidgeon was asleep with his head under his tiny wing. The scar on Harry's forehead was prickling. You were muttering in your sleep. Was I? Yeah. Gregorovitch. You kept saying Gregorovitch. Harry was not wearing his glasses. Again, this is what I look like when I'm not wearing my glasses. Ron's face appeared slightly blurred. Where's Gregorovitch? I don't know, do I? You were the one saying it. Harry rubbed his forehead, thinking. He had a vague idea. He had heard the name before, but he could not think of where. I think Voldemort's looking for him. Poor bloke, said Ron fervently. Harry sat up, still rubbing his scar, now wide awake. He tried to remember exactly what he had seen in the dream, but all that came back was a mountainous horizon and the outline of the little village cradled in a deep valley. I think he's a fraud. Who? Gregorovitch? Voldemort. I think he's somewhere abroad, looking for Gregorovitch. It didn't look like anywhere in Britain. You reckon you were seeing into his mind again? Ron sounded worried. Do me a favor and don't tell Hermione, said Harry. Although, how she expects me to stop seeing stuff in my sleep? Yeah, how exactly is that possible? It just makes me wonder now that I'm thinking about it. He gazed up a little at Pigwidgeon's case, thinking. Why was the name Gregorovitch familiar? I think, he said slowly, it's got something to do with Quidditch. There's some connection, but I can't think of what it is. Quidditch, said Ron. Sure you're not thinking of Gregorovitch? Who? Who? Dragomir Gregorovitch, Chaser, transferred to the Chadley Cannons for record fee 2 years ago. Record holder for the most quaffle drops in a season. No, said Harry. I'm definitely not thinking of Gregorovitch. I tried not to either, said Ron. Well, happy birthday anyway. Oh, that's right. I forgot. I'm 17. Well, I'm not 17, but Harry is. So, happy birthday in this chapter, Harry. Harry seized the wand beside his camp bed, pointed it at the cluttered desk where he had left his glasses, and said, Accio glasses! Although they were only around a foot away, there was something immensely satisfying about seeing them zoom toward him. At least until they poked him in the eye. Yeah, that's why whenever I'm not wearing them when I'm sleeping, I fold them like this. So if I were to cast it, it wouldn't go like boop. You know? So for the record, Harry, try doing it like this and not like this. Just a little tip from a fellow glasses wearer. Slick, snorted Ron. Reveling in the removal of his trays, Harry sent Ron's possessions flying around the room, causing Pigwidgeon to wake up and flutter excitedly around his cage. Oh, Pigwidgeon, you are such a brilliant interpretation of ADHD, it's not even funny. But we love you for it. Harry also tried tying the laces of his trainers by magic. The resultant knot took several minutes to untie by hand, and purely for the pleasure of it, he turned the orange ropes on Ron's Chadwick Cannon's posters bright blue. I hope not too bright. I hope it's something like this blue, because this blue is pretty. Also, this is foreshadowing. I do fly by your hand, though, Ron advised Harry, snickering when Harry immediately checked it. Here's your present. And wrap it up here. It's not from my mother's list. A book, said Harry as he took the rectangular parcel. Bit of departure from tradition, isn't it? Oh, Harry. This isn't your average book, said Ron. It's pure gold. 12 fail-safe ways to charm witches. Explains everything you need to know about girls. If only I had this last year, I'd have known exactly how to get rid of Lavender. And I'd have known how to get going with... Well, Fred and George gave me a copy, and I've learned a lot. You'd be surprised. It's not all about wand work either. No, it certainly isn't. To win my heart, you have to love Harry Potter, be kind and respectful to me, and make me happy. Those are my top 3 requirements. I hope you're taking notes. Anyhow, when they arrived in the kitchen, they found a pile of presents waiting on the table. Bill and Monsieur Delacour were finishing their breakfast while Mrs. Weasley stood chatting to them over the frying pan. Arthur told me to wish you a happy 17th, Harry, said Mrs. Weasley, beaming at him. He had to leave early for work, but he'll be back for dinner. That's our present on top. Harry sat down, took the square parcel she had indicated, and unwrapped it. Inside was a watch very like the one Mr. and Mrs. Weasley had given Ron for his 17th. It was gold with stars circling around the face instead of hands. It's traditional to give a wizard a watch when he comes of age, said Mrs. Weasley, watching him anxiously from beside the cooker. I'm afraid that one isn't new like Ron's. It was actually my brother Fabian's, and he wasn't terribly careful with his possessions. It's a bit dented on the back, but... The rest of her speech was lost. Harry had got up and hugged her. Aww. Hugs for both Harry and Molly. Aww. He tried to put a lot of unsaid things into the hug, and perhaps she understood them because she patted his cheek clumsily when he released her, then waved her wand in a slightly random way, causing half a pack of bacon to flop out of the frying pan onto the floor. Yeah, you might want to... that's bacon I don't want to touch. But I do hope you remember to clean up, Molly. Happy birthday, Harry, said Hermione, hurrying into the kitchen and adding her own present to the top of the pile. It's not much, but I hope you like it. What did you get him? She added to Ron, who seemed not to hear her. We love you too, Ron and Hermione. We love you too. Come on then, open Hermione's, said Ron. She had bought him a new sneakoscope. The other packages contained an enchanted razor from Bill and Fur. I'm a little wary on how an enchanted razor will work. But anyway, yes, this looks the smoothest shave you'll ever have. My voice. Okay. Yes, this will give you the smoothest shave you'll ever have. Once you're done the chorus, sort of. But you must have it clearly what you want. Otherwise, you might find you have a little less hair than you would like. Chocolates from the Delacours. French chocolate. Oh, I bet that's delicious. Sorry, I was just daydreaming about how good it was. But anyway. And an enormous box of the latest Weasley's Wizard Wheezes. Merchandise from Fred and George. Harry, Ron, and Hermione did not linger at the table, as the arrival of Madame Delacour, Fleur, and Gabrielle made the kitchen uncomfortably crowded. Yeah, I would take that as a cue to leave the room. I'll pack these for you, Hermione said brightly, taking Harry's presents out of his arms as the three of them headed back upstairs. I'm nearly done. I'm just waiting for the rest of your underpants to come out of the wash, Ron. Ron's splutter was interrupted by the opening of a door on the first floor landing. Harry, will you come in here a moment? It was Ginny. Ron came to an abrupt halt, but Hermione took him by the elbow and tugged him up on the stairs. Feeling nervous, Harry followed Ginny into her room. He had never been inside of it before. It was small, but bright. There was a large poster of the Wizarding band the Weird Sisters on one wall, and a picture of Gwenog Jones, captain of the all-witch Quidditch team, the Holyhead Harpies, on the other. A desk stood facing the open window, which looked out over the orchard where he and Ginny had once played a two-a-side Quidditch with Ron and Hermione, and which now housed a large pearly white marquee. The golden flag on top was level with Ginny's window. Ginny looked up into Harry's face, took a deep breath, and said, "Happy 17th. Yeah, thanks." She was looking at him steadily. He, however, found it difficult to look back at her. It was like gazing into a brilliant light. Well, there's the brilliant light from my window. You can see it reflecting on this side of my hair. "Nice view," he said feebly, pointing toward the window. Okay, there's me pointing to my window again. She ignored this. He couldn't blame her. "I couldn't think what to get you," she said. "You didn't have to get me anything." She disregarded this too. "I didn't know what would be useful. Nothing too big, because you wouldn't be able to take it with you." He chanced to glance at her. She was not tearful. That was one of the many wonderful things about Ginny. She was rarely weepy. He had sometimes thought that having 6 brothers must have toughened her up. Yeah, that'd probably be accurate. Me, however, my best friends are my siblings. I'll put it that way. She took a step closer to him. And then I thought, I'd like you to have something to remember me by. You know, if you need some favor when you're doing whatever you're doing. I think dating opportunities are going to be pretty thin on the ground, to be honest. There's the silver lining I've been looking for," she whispered. And then she was kissing him as she had never kissed him before. And Harry was kissing her back, and it was wistful oblivion. Better than fire and whiskey, she was the only real thing in the world. Ginny, the feel of her, one hand at her back and one in her long, sweet-smelling hair. The door banged open behind them, and they jumped apart. "Oh," said Ron pointedly. "Sorry." "Ron!" Hermione was just behind him, slightly out of breath. There was a strange silence. Then Ginny said in a flat little voice, "Well, happy birthday anyway, Harry." Ron's ears were scarlet. Hermione looked nervous. Harry wanted to slam the door in their faces, but it felt as though a cold draft had entered the room when the door opened, and his shining moment had popped like a soap bubble. All the reasons for ending his relationship with Ginny, for staying well away from her, seemed to have sunk inside the room with Ron, and all the happy forgetfulness was gone. He looked at Ginny, wanting to say something, though he hardly knew what, but she had turned her back on him. He thought that she might have succumbed, for once, to tears. He could not do anything to comfort her in front of Ron. "I'll see you later," he said, and followed the other two out of the bedroom. Ron marched downstairs, through the still crowded kitchen, and into the yard. and Harry kept pace with him all the way, Hermione trotting along behind them, looking scared. Once he had reached the seclusion of the French lawn, Ron rounded on Harry. "You touched her! What are you doing now? Messing her around?" "I'm not messing her around," said Harry as Hermione caught up with him. "Ron—" But Ron held up a hand to silence her. "She was really caught up when you ended it. So was I. You know why I stopped it. And it wasn't because I wanted to." "Yeah, but you go snogging her now and she's just going to get up her hopes again. She's not an idiot. She knows it can happen. She's not expecting us to end up married." Foreshadowing. Or, as he said it, a vivid picture formed in Harry's mind of Ginny in a white dress, marrying a tall, faceless, and unpleasant stranger. In one spiraling moment it seemed to hit him. Her future was free and unencumbered, whereas his, he could see nothing but Voldemort ahead. "You keep going at her every chance you get." "It won't happen again," said Harry harshly. The day was cloudless, but he felt as though the sun had gone in. "Okay?" Ron looked half resentful, half sheepish. He rocked backward and forward on his feet for a moment, and said, "Right then. Well, that's... yeah." Ginny didn't seek another one-to-one meeting with Harry for the rest of the day, nor did any look or gesture show that they had shared more than polite conversation in her room. Nevertheless, Charlie's arrival came as a relief to Harry. It provided a distraction watching Mrs. Weasley force Charlie into a chair, raise her wand threateningly, and announce that he was about to get a proper haircut. Oh, Molly. If Harry's hair is any indication, wizarding hair has a mind of its own. And I think mine's probably like that too, because sometimes my hair does this to where it just rests on my shoulders like this, and the rest of my hair in my back, just because it wants to. Like, I don't automatically move it to the sides. It just does that on its own for no reason at all. I also don't know if you noticed, but when it's spring and summer, my hair is a lighter brown, whereas if it's autumn and winter, like how it is now, it's darker. So it's like thermodynamic. So I don't know what else to say. I can't explain it. I guess the only explanation based on this commentary is that my hair is magical just like I am. But yeah, if Harry's hair is any indication, wizarding hair usually has a mind of its own. But the image of you trying to give Charlie a haircut it's priceless, Molly. Keep trying. But anyway, as Harry's birthday dinner would have stretched the Burrows' kitchen to breaking point even before the arrival of Charlie, Lupin, Tonks, and Hagrid, several tables were placed end to end in the garden. Fred and George bewitched a number of purple lanterns, all emblazoned with the large number 17, to hang in mid-air over the guests. I would have made the lanterns I would have made the lanterns form a 1 and a 7 for 17. That would have been cool. But anyway, to hang in midair over the guests. Thanks to Mrs. Weasley's ministrations, George's wound was neat and clean, but Harry was not yet used to the dark hole in the side of his head, despite the twins' many jokes about it. Yeah, that would be a little, I guess for lack of a better phrase, disarming to me too, Harry. Hermione made purple and gold streamers erupt from the end of her wand and draped themselves artistically over the trees and bushes. Nice, said Ron, as with one final flourish of her wand, Hermione turned the leaves on the crab apple tree to gold. I'm sure they got a knife for that sort of thing. Thank you, Ron, said Hermione, looking both pleased and a little confused. Harry turned away, smiling to himself. He had a funny notion that he would find a chapter on compliments when he found time to peruse his copy of 12 Fail-Safe Ways to Charm Witches. He caught Ginny's eye and grinned at her before remembering his promise to Ron, and hurriedly struck up a conversation with Monsieur Delacour. I wonder what they talked about. Quidditch teams, what accomplishments, maybe how to make a wizarding marriage last. I don't know. What do you guys think they talked about? Please let me know in the comments. Out of the way, said Mrs. Weasley, coming through the gate with what appeared to be a giant beach ball-sized snitch floating in front of her. Seconds later, Harry realized that it was his birthday cake, which Mrs. Weasley was suspending with her wand rather than risk carrying it over the uneven ground. Yeah, levitation spells would probably come in handy for that. When the cake had finally landed in the middle of the table, Harry said, "That looks amazing, Mrs. Weasley." "Oh, it's nothing, dear," she said fondly. Nothing? If I were given a cake that was shaped like a golden snitch, I would be like taking pictures of it and being starstruck by it. That probably was not an easy feat. I applaud you, Molly. I applaud you. Over her shoulder, Ron gave Harry the thumbs up and mouthed, "Good one." By 7 o'clock, all the guests had arrived, led into the house by Fred and George, who had waited for them at the end of the lane. Hagrid had honored the occasion by wearing his best and horrible hairy brown suit. Although Lupin smiled as he shook Harry's hand, Harry thought he looked rather unhappy. It was all very odd. Tonks beside him looked simply radiant. Well, I don't want to give out too many spoilers, but there is a reason why. I'll put it that way. And advanced Potterheads, you know why. Newcomers, you're probably going to have to wait. "Happy birthday, Harry," she said, hugging him tightly. "Some dine, said Hagrid as he accepted a bucket-sized glass of wine from Fred. 6 years to the die since we met. You remember it?" "Vaguely," said Harry, grinning up at him. "Didn't you smash on the front door, give that place a pig's head, and tell me I was a wizard?" "Ah, yes, good memory, Harry. After all, you're a wizard, Harry." And in case you're wondering, I'm a what? Well, Harry, you're a wizard. Sorry, I just had to have that little callback to Sorcerer's Stone since, the whole segment there was like a callback to that, so. Fond memories. I forget the details, Hagrid chortled. "Alright, Ron, Hermione?" "We're fine," said Hermione. How are you? Not bad. I'm busy. We got some newborn unicorns. I'll show you when you get back. Harry avoided Ron and Hermione's gazes as Hagrid rummaged in his pocket. Here, Harry. Couldn't think of what to get you. But then I remembered this. He pulled out a slightly furry drawstring pouch with a long string, evidently intended to be worn around the neck. Moleskin. I didn't anything in there no one but the owner can get it out. Right then. Hagrid, thanks. If I had one, I think I would put some of my jewelry in there. But then again, I could think of some other things I would probably fit in there too. What would you put in your moleskin if you had one? Again, let me know in the comments. Nothing, said Hagrid with a wave of a dustbin-lid-sized hand. There's Charlie. Always liked him. Hey, Charlie! Charlie approached, running his hand slightly ruefully over his new, brutally short haircut. Aw, poor Charlie. He was shorter than Ron, thick-set with a number of burns and scratches up his muscular arms. Hi, Hagrid. How's it going? Been interrupt for ages. How's Norbert doing? Norbert? Norbert? Charlie laughed. The Norwegian Ridgeback. We call her Norberta now. What? Norbert's a girl? Oh, yeah, said Charlie. How can you tell? Asked Hermione. They're a lot more vicious, said Charlie. He looked over his shoulder and dropped his voice. Wish Dad would hurry up and get here. Mom's getting edgy. Yes, the dragon Hagrid thought he wanted to have. We love you too, Hagrid. We love you too. They all looked over at Mrs. Weasley. She was trying to talk to Madame Delacour while glancing repeatedly at the gate. I think we'd better start without Arthur, she called to the garden at large after a moment or two. Must have been held up at the... Oh! They all saw it at the same time. A streak of light that came flying across the yard onto the table, where it resolved itself into a bright silver weasel, which stood on its hind legs and spoke with Mr. Weasley's voice. Minister of Magic coming with me. I would love to know how you make a Patronus talk. Like, that is so cool. The Patronus dissolved into thin air, leaving First Family peering in astonishment at the place where it had vanished. Okay, now this makes me curious. What is Mr. Weasley's happiest memory? Is it the birth of his eldest son, Bill? His marriage with Molly? Meeting Molly? Like, I have to know, what is his happiest memory? We shouldn't be here, said Lupin at once. Harry, I'm sorry. I'll explain another time. He seized Tonks's wrist and pulled her away. They reached the fence, climbed over it, and vanished from sight. Mrs. Weasley looked bewildered. Minister? But why? I don't understand. But there was no time to discuss the matter. A second later, Mr. Weasley had appeared out of thin air at the gate, accompanied by Rufus Scrimgeour, instantly recognizable by his mane of grizzled hair. The two newcomers marched across the yard toward the garden and lanternwood table, where everybody sat in silence, watching them draw closer. As Scrimgeour came within range of the lantern light, Harry saw that he looked much older than the last time they had met, scraggy and grim. Sorry to intrude, said Scrimgeour as he went to a halt before the table, especially as I can see that I'm gate crashing a party. His eyes lingered for a moment on the giant snitch cake. Many happy returns. Thanks, said Harry. I require a private word with you, Scrimgeour went on. Also with Mr. Ronald Weasley and Miss Hermione Granger. Us? Said Ron, sounding surprised. Why us? I shall tell you that when we are somewhere more private, said Scrimgeour. Is there such a place? He demanded of Mr. Weasley. Yes, of course, said Mr. Weasley, who looked nervous. Your sitting room. Why don't you use that? You can lead the way, said Scrimgeour to Ron. There will be no need for you to accompany us off. Harry saw Mr. Weasley exchange a worried look with Mrs. Weasley as he, Ron, and Hermione stood up. As they led the way back to the house in silence, Harry knew that the other two were thinking the same as he was. Scrimgeour must, somehow, have warned that the three of them were planning to drop out of Hogwarts. Scrimgeour did not speak as they all passed through the messy kitchen and into the Burrow sitting room. Although the garden had been full of soft golden evening light, it was already dark in here. Harry flicked his wand at the oil lamps as he entered, and they illuminated the shabby but cozy room. Scrimgeour sat himself in the sagging armchair that Mr. Weasley normally occupied, leaving Harry, Ron, and Hermione to squeeze side by side onto the sofa. Once they had done so, Scrimgeour spoke. I have some questions for the three of you, and I think it would be best if we do it individually. If you two, he pointed at Harry and Hermione, can meet upstairs, and we'll start with Ronald. We're not going anywhere, said Harry, while Hermione nodded vigorously. You can speak to us together or not at all. Scrimgeour gave Harry a cold, appraising look. Harry had the impression that the minister was wondering whether it was worthwhile opening hostilities this early. Very well then, together, he said, shrugging. He cleared his throat. I am here, as I'm sure you know, because of Albus Dumbledore's will. Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at one another. A surprise, apparently. You were not aware that Dumbledore had left you anything. All of us, said Ron. Hermione and I, too. Yes, but Harry interrupted. Dumbledore died over a month ago. Why has it taken this long to give us what he left us? Isn't it obvious? Said Hermione before Scrimgeour could answer. I wanted to examine whatever he's left us. You had no right to do that, she said, and her voice trembled slightly. I had every right, said Scrimgeour dismissively. The decree for justifiable conservation gives the ministry the power to confiscate the contents of a will. That law was created to stop wizards from passing on dark artifacts, said Hermione. And the ministry is supposed to have powerful evidence that deceased possessions are illegal before seizing them. Are you telling me that you thought Dumbledore was trying to pass something cursed? I mean, that is a valid point to ask, Hermione. Are you planning to follow a career in magical law, Miss Granger? Asked Scrimgeour. No, I'm not, retorted Hermione. I'm hoping to do some good in the world. Me too, Hermione. Me too. Ron laughed. Scrimgeour's eyes flickered toward him and away again as Harry spoke. So why have you decided to let us have our things now? Can't think of a pretext to keep them? No, it'll be because the 31 days are up, said Hermione at once. They can't keep the objects longer than that, unless they can prove they're dangerous. Right? I would assume that's the case, Hermione. Would you say you were close to Dumbledore, Ronald? Asked Grimdor, ignoring Hermione. Ron looked startled. Me? Not really. It was always Harry who... Ron looked around at Harry and Hermione, and to see Hermione giving him a "Stop talking now!" sort of look. There's how I interpret that look. But the damage was already done. Scrimgeour looked as though he had uttered exactly what he had expected and wanted to hear. He swooped like a bird of prey upon Ron's answer. If you were not very close to Dumbledore, how do you account for the fact that he remembered you in his will? He made exceptionally few personal bequests. The vast majority of his possessions, his private library, his magical instruments, and other personal effects were left to Hogwarts. Why do you think you were singled out? I don't know, said Ron. When I say we were close, I mean, I think he liked me. You're being modest, Ron, said Hermione. Dumbledore was very fond of you. This was stretching the truth to breaking point. As far as Harry knew, Ron and Dumbledore had never been alone together, and direct contact between them had been eligible. However, Scrimgeour did not seem to be listening. He put his hand inside his cloak and drew out a drawstring pouch much larger than the one Hagrid had given Harry. From it he removed a scroll of parchment, which he unrolled and read aloud. The last will and testament of Albus Percival Wilfrid Brian Dumbledore. Yes, here we are. To Ronald Bilious Weasley, I leave my Deluminator in the hope that he will remember me when he uses it. Scrimgeour took from the bag an object that Harry had seen before. It looked something like a silver cigarette lighter, but it had, he knew, the power to suck all light from a place and restore it with a simple click. I know that's more of a snap, but, bear with me. Scrimgeour leaned forward and passed the Deluminator to Ron, who took it and turned it over in his fingers, looking stunned. That is a valuable object, said Scrimgeour, watching Ron. It may even be unique. Certainly it is of Dumbledore's own design. Why would he have left you an item so rare? Ron shook his head, looking bewildered. Dumbledore must have taught thousands of students, Scrimgeour persevered. Yet the only ones he remembered in his will were you three. Why is that? To what use did he think you would put his Deluminator, Mr. Weasley? Put up mice, I suppose, mumbled Ron. What else could I do with it? Evidently, Scrimgeour had no suggestions. Well, advanced Potterheads, we know why Dumbledore left Ron his Deluminator, but new Potterheads, you're gonna have to wait and see. Sorry. After squinting at Ron for a moment or two, he turned back to Dumbledore's will. To Miss Hermione Jane Granger, I leave my copy of the Tales of Beetle the Bog, which I have here. In the hope she will find it entertaining and instructive. Scrimgeour now pulled out of the bag a small book that looked as ancient as the copy of Secrets of the Darkest Art upstairs. Its binding was stained and peeling in places. Well, as you saw, mine is thankfully not that ancient. or healing. Hermione took it from Scrimgeour without a word. She held the book in her lap and gazed at it. Harry saw that the title was runes. He had never learned to read them. As he looked, a tear splashed onto the embossed symbols. "Why do you think Dumbledore left you that book, Miss Granger?" asked Scrimgeour. "He knew I liked books," said Hermione in a thick voice, mopping her eyes with her sleeve. "But why that particular book?" "I don't know. He must have thought I'd enjoy it." "Did you ever discuss codes or any means of passing secret messages with Dumbledore?" "No, I didn't," said Hermione, still wiping her eyes on her sleeve. "And if the Ministry hasn't found any hidden codes in this book in 31 days, I doubt that I will." "Oh, Hermione, don't doubt yourself. You are a capable witch beyond your imagination." She suppressed a sob. They were wedged together so tightly that Ron had difficulty extracting his arm to put it around Hermione's shoulders. Scrimgeour turned back to the will. "To Harry James Potter," he read, and Harry's insides contracted with sudden excitement. "And leave the snitch he caught in his first Quidditch match at Hogwarts, as a reminder of the Lord's perseverance and skill." As Scrimgeour pulled out the tiny walnut-sized golden ball, its silver wings fluttered rather feebly, and Harry could not help feeling a definite sense of anticlimax. "Why did Dumbledore leave you the snitch?" asked Scrimgeour. "No idea," said Harry. "For the reasons you've just brought out, I suppose. To remind me what I can get if you persevere in whatever it was." "You think of this as a mere symbolic keepsake, then?" "I suppose so," said Harry. "What else could it be?" "I'm asking the questions," said Scrimgeour, shifting his chair. Chair is something different entirely. A contralto singer, in case you don't know. I love her. I love her duet with Peter Cetera. After all, it is just so deeply romantic, and if you haven't listened to it yet, I definitely recommend you do so. But yeah, Cher is something different from Chair. But anyway, his chair. A little closer to the sofa. Dusk was really falling outside now. The marquee beyond the windows towered ghostly white over the hedge. "I noticed that your birthday cake is in the shape of a snitch," Scrimgeour said to Harry. "Why is that?" Hermione laughed derisively. "Oh, it can't be a reference to the fact Harry's a great seeker. That's way too obvious," she said. "There must be a secret message from Dumbledore hidden in the icing." "I don't think there's anything hidden in the icing," said Scrimgeour, "but a snitch would be a very good hiding place for a small object. You know why, I'm sure." Harry shrugged. Hermione, however, answered. Harry thought that answering questions correctly was such a deeply ingrained habit. She could not suppress the urge. "I feel you, Hermione. I really do." "Because snitches have flesh memories," she said. "What?" said Harry and Ron together. Both considered Hermione's Quidditch knowledge knowledgeable. Correct. said Scrimgeour. A snitch is not touched by bare skin before it is released, not even by the maker, who wears gloves. It carries an enchantment by which it can identify the first human to lay hands upon it, in case of a disputed capture. This snitch, he held up the tiny golden ball, will remember your touch, Potter. It occurs to me that Dumbledore, with prodigious magical skill, whatever his faults, might have enchanted this snitch so that it will only open for you. Harry's heart was beating rather fast. He was sure that Scrimgeour was right. How could he avoid taking the snitch with his bare hand in front of the minister? You don't say anything, said Scrimgeour. Perhaps you already know what the snitch contains. No, said Harry, still wondering how he could appear to touch the snitch without really doing so. If he only knew legitimacy, really knew it, and could read Hermione's mind, he could practically hear her brain whirring beside him. I think he would be overwhelmed, Harry, and frankly, I would be too. Take it, said Scrimgeour quietly. Harry met the minister's yellow eyes and knew he had no option but to obey. He held out his hand, and Scrimgeour leaned forward again and placed the snitch, slowly and deliberately, into Harry's palm. Nothing happened. As Harry's fingers closed around the snitch, its tired wings fluttered and were still. Scrimgeour, Ron, and Hermione continued to gaze avidly at the now partially concealed ball, as if still hoping it might transform in some way. That was dramatic, said Harry coolly. Both Ron and Hermione laughed. That's all then, is it? Asked Hermione, making to prise herself off the sofa. Not quite, said Scrimgeour, who looked bad-tempered now. Dumbledore left you a second bequest, Potter. What is it? Asked Harry, excitement rekindling. Scrimgeour did not bother to read from the will this time. The sword of Godric Gryffindor, he said. Hermione and Ron both stiffened. Harry looked around for a sight of the ruby-encrusted hilt, but Scrimgeour did not pull the sword from the leather pouch, which in any case looked much too small to contain it. So where is it? Harry asked suspiciously. Unfortunately, said Scrimgeour, that sword was not Dumbledore's to give away. The sword of Godric Gryffindor is an important artifact, and as such it belongs. It belongs to Harry, said Hermione hotly. It chose him. He was the one who found it. It came to him out of the Sorting Hat. According to reliable historical sources, that the sword may present itself to any worthy Gryffindor, said Scrimgeour. That does not make it the exclusive property of Mr. Potter, whatever Dumbledore may have decided. Scrimgeour scratched his badly shaven cheek, scrutinizing Harry. Why do you think Dumbledore wanted to give me the sword? Said Harry, struggling to keep his temper. Maybe he thought it looked nice on my wall. This is not a joke, Potter, growled Scrimgeour. Was it because Dumbledore believed that only the sword of Godric Gryffindor could defeat the heir of Slytherin? Did he wish to give you that sword, Potter, because he believed, as do many, that you are the one destined to destroy he who must not be named? Interesting theory, said Harry. Has anyone tried sticking a sword in Voldemort? Maybe the ministry should put some people onto that, instead of wasting their time stripping down denominators or covering up breakouts from Azkaban. So this is what you've been doing, Minister. Shut up in your office, trying to break open a snitch. People are dying. I was nearly one of them. Voldemort chased me across 3 counties. He killed Mad-Eye Moody, but there has been no word about any of that from the ministry, has there? And you still expect us to cooperate with you? You go too far, shouted Scrimgeour, standing up. Harry jumped to his feet too. Scrimgeour went toward Harry and jabbed him hard in the chest with the point of his own wand. It singed a hole in Harry's t-shirt like a lit cigarette. "Oi!" said Ron, jumping up and raising his own wand. But Harry said, "No. Do you want to give him an excuse to arrest us? Remember that you're not at school, have you?" said Scrimgeour, breathing hard into Harry's face. "Remember that I am not Dumbledore, who forgave your insolence and insubordination. You may wear that scar like a crown, Potter, but it is not up to a 17-year-old boy to tell me how to do my job. It's time you learned some respect." "He is capable of respect, Minister Scrimgeour. Trust me." "It's time you earned it," said Harry. The floor trembled. There was a sound of running footsteps. But then the door to the sitting room burst open, and Mr. and Mrs. Weasley ran in. We thought we heard," began Mr. Weasley, looking thoroughly alarmed at the sight of Harry and the minister virtually nose to nose. "Raised voices," panted Mrs. Weasley. Scrimgeour took a couple of steps back from Harry, glancing at the hole he had made in Harry's t-shirt. He seemed to regret his loss of temper. It was nothing," he growled. "I regret your attitude," he said, looking Harry full in the face once more. "You seem to think that the ministry does not desire what Dumbledore desired. We ought to be working together." "I don't like your methods, Minister," said Harry. "Remember?" For the second time he raised his right fist, and displayed it to Scrimgeour so that the scar still showed white on the back of it, spelling, "I must not tell lies." Scrimgeour's expression hardened. He turned away without another word and moved from the room. Mrs. Weasley hurried after him. Harry heard her stop at the back door. After a minute or so, she called, "He's gone." "So what did he want?" Mr. Weasley asked, looking around at Harry, Ron, and Hermione, as Mrs. Weasley came hurrying back to them. "To give us what Dumbledore left us," said Harry. "They've only just released the contents of his will." Outside in the garden, over the dinner tables, the 3 objects Scrimgeour had given them were passed from hand to hand. Everyone exclaimed over the Deluminator and the tales of Beetle the Bard, and lamented that the fact that Scrimgeour had refused to pass on the sword. But none of them could offer any suggestion as to why Dumbledore would have left Harry an old snitch. As Mr. Weasley examined the Deluminator for the 3rd or 4th time, Mrs. Weasley said tentatively, "Harry dear, everyone's awfully hungry. We didn't like to start without you, so I served dinner now." They all ate rather hurriedly, and then after a hasty chorus of happy birthday, Nope, you're not gonna get me to say that. I'm sorry, but nope, you're not gonna get me to say that." And much gulping of cake, the party broke up. Hagrid, who was invited to the wedding the following day, but was far too bulky to sleep in the overstretched burrow, was left to set up a tent for himself in a neighboring field. "Meet us upstairs," Harry whispered to Hermione while they helped Mrs. Weasley restore the garden to its normal state. "After everyone's gone to bed." Up in the attic room, Ron examined his Deluminator, and Harry filled Hagrid's moleskin purse, not with gold, but with those items he most prized. Apparently worthless though some of them were. The Marauder's map, the shard of Sirius's enchanted mirror, and R.I.B.'s walk-in. He pulled the strings tight and swept the purse around his neck, then sat holding the old snitch and watching its wings flutter feebly. At last Hermione tapped on the door and tiptoed inside. "Of the auto," she whispered, waving her wand in the direction of the stairs. "Thought you didn't approve of that spell," said Ron. "Times change," said Hermione. "Now show us that denominator." Ron obliged at once. Holding it up in front of him, he clicked it. The solitary wimp they had went out at once. "The thing is," whispered Hermione through the dark, "we could have achieved that with Peruvian instant darkness powder." There was a small click, and the ball of light from the lamp flew back to the ceiling and illuminated them all once more. "Still, it's cool," said Ron a little defensively. "And from what they said, Dumbledore invented it himself." "I know, but surely he wouldn't have wanted you singled out in his will just to help us turn out the lights." "I don't know. I could think I would have loved to have a Deluminator in certain instances of my life where I felt it really necessary. Mainly times when I was still going back and forth. But anyhow, do you think he knew the Ministry would confiscate his will and examine everything he left us?" asked Harry. "Definitely," said Hermione. "He wouldn't tell us in the will why he was leaving us these things, but that still doesn't explain why he could have given us a hint when he was alive," asked Ron. "Well, exactly," said Hermione, now flicking through the tales of Beetle the Bard. "If these things are important enough to pass on right under the nose of the Ministry, you'd think he'd have let us know why. Unless he thought it was obvious." "But wrong then, didn't he?" said Ron. "I always said he was mental, brilliant and everything, but cracked. Even Harry an old snitch. What was that about?" "I've no idea," said Hermione. "When Scrimgeour made you take it, Harry, I was so sure that something was going to happen." "Yeah, well," said Harry, his pulse quickening as he raised the snitch in his fingers. "I wasn't going to try too hard in front of Scrimgeour, was I?" "What do you mean?" asked Hermione. "The snitch I caught in my first ever Quidditch match," said Harry. "Don't you remember?" Harry looked simply bemused. Ron, however, gasped, pointed frantically from Harry to the snitch and back again until he found his voice. "That was the one you nearly swallowed!" "Exactly," said Harry, and with his heart beating fast, he pressed his mouth to the snitch. It did not open. Frustration and bitter disappointment welled up inside him. He wore the golden sphere, but then Hermione cried out, "Writing! There's writing on it! Quick, look!" He nearly dropped the snitch in surprise and excitement. Hermione was quite right. Engraved on the smooth golden surface, where seconds before there had been nothing, were 5 words written in the thin, slanting handwriting that Harry recognized as Dumbledore's. "I open at the close." And I love this genius of J.K. Rowling, because the first book was, it's just like, when this book ends, the what happens in the series, like, you like the first book, it like opens to that, and it's just like, well, not literally, but it's like, it's just so exciting. I love this genius of J.K.R. It's just Three-step kiss. But anyway, before I geek out further, he had barely read them when the words vanished again. I open up the clothes. What's that supposed to mean? Hermione and Ron shook their heads, looking blank. I open up the clothes. At the clothes. I open up the clothes. But no matter how often they repeated the words, with many different inflections, they were unable to wring any more meaning from them. And the sword, said Ron finally, when they had at last abandoned their attempts to divine meaning in the Snitch's inscription. Why did he want Harry to have the sword? Why couldn't he have just told me? Said Harry quietly. It was there. Right there on the wall of his office during all our talks last year. If he wanted me to have it, why didn't he just give it to me then? He felt as though he were sitting in an examination with the question he had thought to been able to answer in front of him. His brain slow and unresponsive. Was there something he had missed in the long talks with Dumbledore last year? Ought he to know what all it meant? Had Dumbledore expected him to understand? And as for this book, said Hermione, the Tales of Beetle the Bard? I never even heard of them. You've never heard of the Tales of Beetle the Bard? Said Ron incredulously. You're kidding, right? No. No, she's not, Ron. Because it may have escaped your notice, but she's Muggle-born. Muggle-born. She probably grew up listening to her parents read Shakespeare. Which, honestly, I wouldn't put by her. Okay, that's a headcanon now. Hermione grew up listening to Shakespeare. But anyhow. No, I'm not, said Hermione in surprise. Do you know them, then? But of course I do. Harry looked up diverted. The circumstance of Ron having read a book that Hermione had not was unprecedented. Ron, however, looked bemused by their surprise. Oh, come on! All the old kids' stories are supposed to be beetles, aren't they? The Fountain of Her Fortune, the Wizard and the Hopping Pot, Babbity Babbity and her Cavilling Stump. And yes, I'm going to read them too. Just not at this moment. Excuse me, said Hermione, giggling. What was that last one? Come off it, said Ron, looking in disbelief from Harry to Hermione. You must have heard of Babbity Babbity. Ron, you know full well Harry and I were brought up by Muggles, said Hermione. We didn't hear stories like that when we were little. We heard Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Cinderella. What's that, an illness? Asked Ron. So these are children's stories? Asked Hermione, bending again over the rooms. Yeah, said Ron uncertainly. I mean, that's just what you hear, you know? That all these old stories came from Beetle. I don't know what they're like in the original versions. But I wonder why Dumbledore thought I should read them. Something creaked downstairs. Probably just Charlie. My mom's asleep, sneaking off to regrow his hair, said Ron nervously. All the same, we should get to bed, whispered Hermione. Wouldn't dare to oversleep tomorrow. No, agreed Ron. A brutal triple murder by the bridegroom's mother might put a bit of a damper on the wedding. I'll get the lights. And he clicked the illuminator once more as Hermione left the room. And that is the end of this chapter. Join me next week for chapter 8, The Wedding. Until then, bye! And like I said, when separately I will read the stories in this for those of you who are interested. So bye!